Hello there. Welcome to another edition of Rockets Rambler Garage. We are madly thrashing about on all kinds of different parts and pieces of this 1962 Rambler Ambassador we're rebuilding. Today is going to be kind of a mixture of all kinds of little loose ends we need to do before we get busy and more or less immobilize the car until we're actually ready to put this back in, which is actually going to be a few weeks away. So we got a kind of a short list of things to do. We're going to get the freeze plugs back in the motor, get the oil filter adapter back on. We need to get the disaster of a master cylinder out of this car, and that's going to be some fun. The bolts in there have not been apart in many years, and we juiced them down here a few weeks ago. So hopefully they'll come apart without snapping anything off, but that's always a risk and a big unknown. We also need to put some pressure on the rear brake line and see if it's going to hold pressure or not, because we had this in the shop a year ago, Thanksgiving. It did a good job of dripping something on the floor from where only a brake line could drip fuel, or something. So we're gonna have to find out. It might even be a fuel line leak, but between the two we're gonna have to figure out what's leaking. Maybe it was just something that accumulated from something, but we may have to replace the brake line running to the back. And now's a good time to do it with the motor out, because it'll be a whole lot easier to do. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to get started. All right, so the first freeze plug I'm going to put in is the big one in the front. After we knock these out, I've taken a die grinder with a wire wheel and I've cleaned all these holes. These are actually in great shape in that there's no rust pitting in them. When they get pretty knackered up, though, you'll get rust pitting in them, and it's hard to get new plugs to seal. We're still going to put some sealant on it. This is just basic Permatex number 2. In the past, I've put it on the plug itself, but unfortunately, it tends to put most of it on the outside of the hole, and very little of it follows the plug in. So I'm actually going to try it this time by putting a little bit around the inside of the bore, and that way as the plug goes in, it'll push the excess sealant towards the inside and leave a little bead of sealant around that plug. So hopefully it'll seal up a little bit better. Bad part of it is I can't really gun this around and do much, so I'm going to have to sacrifice my poor finger, and after doing all these I'll have Permatex number 2 everywhere. But that's just the way it's going to be, I guess. Kind of suspect this is something similar to what the factory did. There's darkness here, and that's all the sealant the factory must have swabbed on these when they did it. I'm going to take the excess on my finger and at least try to wipe it in the bore of a couple of these and save that. And by the way, for those people that know me, know that my belief is that RTV sealant should only be used to seal holes in the bottom of your trash can so it doesn't drip the nice juices that tend to collect in there. And that's true for these as well. The stuff hadn't been invented yet, so just don't use it. It's not made for doing this. Now this is part of an actual OTC driver set, and I got busy and made a handle last night that's straight, because the other one was curved. There we go. That one's in. Unfortunately, we need to go in deeper. At some point I'll probably make some of these that'll drive it in and get it past the chamfer. So now that we're in a little ways and we're in square, I got to run around and actually tap that in the rest of the way. And unfortunately, that usually involves sacrificing a socket. So let me find something that's the right size for that, and I'll be right back. So I found a little block on our hydraulic press we use for tapping stuff. Just a tickle more. There we go.
Tuck your arm in so you don't have it out right in front of the camera if you can.
I'll have to do a little bit of cleanup on this to get the rest of the sealant off of it, but we're in just about to the base of the chamfer. We'll check that with a flashlight and make sure we got all the way around. Got it in even, but it looks pretty decently even. So we'll move back to the next one, do the same thing. For people who might be watching that actually owns one of these cars with one of these engines, this rear one is unfortunately one of the more common ones to leak, and it leaks behind the oil filter adapter. So if you got coolant oozing out your oil filter adapter, odds are that's the only thing keeping it from leaking really bad. The oil filter adapter gasket seals all the way around it, and it'll actually hold the coolant in for you. For AMC people, these are important because if you lose one, you can get to the side ones, you can put the rubber expansion plugs in them out on the road. This one you have to separate the engine from the transmission to get to, so they're not much fun. So if you got the engine out, check these. If they're getting rust build up down on the bottom half, odds are your block is full of sediment and silt, and that plug's rusting out. It'll weep. You'll start getting coolant down here out of that gasket plate that's sitting here. It'll start weeping out between the engine and transmission out that gasket plate. I pulled these engines out and gotten the tables are anywhere from a tablespoon of coolant to a cup or two, because it'll fill this whole void up and it oozes out through that gasket plate. It looks good. It gets all the cooling system all buttoned up on the bottom. We'll get busy and we'll put a little bit on the gaskets. We'll bolt these block off plates on the back of the head. I found the factory didn't put much sealant on these, and many of them after all these years have begun to weep as well. I've had to do a couple of these in the car itself. They're much easier to scrape everything clean. Should do it. So with that, cooling system is fairly well buttoned up until we put the water pump in and the water return manifold around the front. But before we do any of that, we're actually going to paint the water return manifold, just because the way it sits, you can't get to about half of it with paint. And I know the factory did that, which is why we actually took it in and got it sandblasted, because it was so rusty. But to avoid having that, we're gonna paint that. We'll paint the front of the motor so we get in all the little nooks and crannies up here in the front that you guys can't see because I got your camera too low. And we'll then put it together painted and put a new O-ring in the crossover passage as well, so that is good. I don't know, somebody had done something, but it had more or less a Permatex 2 glob in there for sealant. So somebody had done some interesting brain surgery on that when they had it apart last, probably for a timing chain. So we will clean up from this disaster, put our toys away, and get set up for the next operation. Okay, give me the black head blow. Turning that easy? Yes, it is. And it's turning on the line as well. Okay.
I also did spray those down pretty heavily.
Yeah. Give me some more to spray it though.
I told you it was right behind you.
Yeah, be quiet.
It's already set to reverse.
Good. The stud come out of the firewall. There's the one nut that come off.
Don't drop the washer.
I want to drop the washer.
You dropped it, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I want you to take that rusty, crusty thing.
You mean this master cylinder with some barnacles?
That one is an icky one.
That's what I keep saying. We should call this car Barney.
Oh. And then that tube nut.
Yeah, where do you want this thing?
Throw it in the top of the waste oil container or oil filter container with the other 2 or 3 of them that are already there. In the meantime, I'm gonna spin that rear nut around a few times in hopes that it actually works some of the rust off the nut. The big line is good. Of course, that's both of them are gonna have to probably get changed. All right, we're back from lunch, and before we turned the camera on, I got busy and took an old brake hose and welded the end shut so we can use it for a plug. We need to make sure that this rear brake line doesn't leak. So I'm gonna get busy and couple it to the rear brake line that come off the master cylinder. Air up the brake line at the rear after we put the car back up in the air, and we'll find out what kind of leaks we get. Not a chance in hell.
Mm-hmm. Go back here to the light where we can actually see things.
Not a chance in hell.
Yeah. You can see it's junk, yeah.
That'll blow under 1,000 psi. So that was brake fluid I spotted on the floor dripping out of there. The bad part of it is it's gotten into that overlay on the fuel line, and it's gonna make a mess of this fuel line. So we almost should drop the fuel line and slip this old sleeve off of here and take and clean with brake fluid the line and get the brake fluid off of it, because it's going to want to make the damn thing rust inside that sleeve and cause us grief with our fuel line later on. Oh, what fun it is. All I need is a one-horse open sleigh.
That was a good one. I was not expecting.
Dang it, dang it, dang it.
This poor car.
Did not want to do brake lines and fuel lines and stuff, but
Now, fuel line was probably okay.
well, we still got to get it apart and get this sleeve off here and get the brake fluid that's soaked into that sleeve off of there, because it's just going to continue to draw moisture and continue to rust the line inside that sleeve to the point where we got fuel dripping out of that stupid thing somewhere down the
remove
line.
it?
Well, you gotta go. No. That's a brand new piece of hose right there.
No, I was gonna cut this. I was just gonna cut down it.
You're not gonna get it. It goes all the way through here.
I can try. Cut it down through here and cut it here and then pull it this way.
You're better off pulling it that way. Yeah, go ahead and slit the sleeve starting here and work your way back. Pull it this way towards the rear.
This one, 'cause this is short.
Hello. All right, let me go see what I got for brake fluid or brake tubing.
All right, what is your debate?
What's my debate? I don't know.
Whether or not you're crazy? Well, we all know the answer to that one, which is yes.
Well, you're crazy.
You're crazy.
This car was your idea. But
Who bought it?
back on topic.
Who bought the car?
Back
Dad?
on topic. No. The question before the house is, do we replace that entire rear brake line and maybe the front pair and the axle tubes too?
Axle tubes look okay.
You know, they all look okay, but at the same time,
Another thing too is these did have like 30-year-old brake fluid in them.
yeah, and usually the lines are coated with a copper plating on the inside, which makes them fairly rust resistant, but the whole thing is, with the engine out, we can actually get to the rear lines to replace them. It's kind of like now is a great time to do it if we're going to. And it really wasn't one of those intended things to do. And it's not even like we're making the rest of the undercarriage of the car look beautiful, but it's also one of those safety things. Do you deal with it and do it while you got the shot or not?
Yeah, and on a trip like that, that's really not one you want to
Well,
deal with, especially with some of the hills in Montana. Although with this being a manual, you just lift your foot off the gas and it'll slow down.
I ain't too worried about slowing down. Although the other part of it is we don't actually have a functional parking brake very well either, knowing that cable's going to snap. But we do have dual circuit brakes in this, which makes it viable to do something with it in that regard. But we've already got to deal with the fact that the line coming off the master cylinder on this end has to have the tube nut replaced. So it might pay to just make a new line with the correct size tube nut to fit that master cylinder, redo and replace the front brake lines too. They're short and relatively easy to make. They're all disconnected except for top center where they come off the junction and go back. But it's also not something we necessarily planned on doing. And there's a good chance that if we just replace that rear line, we'll be okay. Because the rest of them will hold for years and years and years.
The other option to do is we just pull them out and go through them very carefully and make damn sure they won't blow. You're about to pull some random obscure thing out of your backside, ain't you? Oh no, just tube nuts.
Just checking stock. We got 2 packages, which should be 20 tube nuts.
Are they stainless?
These are stainless. These are stainless. So they hold up a whole lot better as well. It's a tougher metal than the mild steel the standards are made out of. So front brake lines 2, 4, 6, 7. This should do a car.
8.
10 should do a car, and we got 2 rolls of tubing, so we can do it.
Oh, you know what you're doing all week after work?
Probably so. Bending brake lines. So, that means we need to move the motor, get cleaned up and back, and get a table in here. So I got a long work table. Don't even look at that one. We'll bring in. We have 4 of them.
Well,
No.
remember what happened last time we brought a table in here to do one little thing? What happened to it now? Oh yeah, we only have this little teeny tiny workspace, 1 foot by 6 inches, on this entire damn table.
Problem is, they just won't let you kill them.
Oh.
That rear brake line's gonna be fun to get out with the AC hoses in the way and some electrical wiring to go with it too. Ugh. Why do I hate having to delve into things?
Because I make you. And don't worry, I'm delving into my own crap. Well, sort of. It's kind of on standby.
I ain't worried about that. Alright. Well, it's probably a plan. Make brake line.
Yeah, your job.
I could make new ones for the diff pretty quick and easy.
In that case, you just steal the ones from the Marlin.
Different lines. This has the splitter way offside to the passenger side. Marlin puts it up near top dead center on the diff under one of the cover bolts. This one has a hole in the drilled and tapped in the top of the axle tube to bolt that up there. So, no. Besides, those are beautiful lines already done with stainless steel ends, but they won't fit.
I'm surprised you didn't make them out of stainless steel lines.
Could, but harder to bend, more costly to buy the parts, material. All right. Oh, God.
You're welcome.
Well, the other thing to do, we know we need to make this line anyway and couple it. So might as well get busy and make that line up, because we have to make the line up no matter which way we go.
Or splice it.
No, there's already a coupling. I'm not going to splice that already done up line. We just make a new line. But we know we need to replace that line. And it's basically rotted out from the inside out, or from the outside in.
And maybe the inside out too. Wouldn't hurt to look inside. If we had a brush small enough to go with a drill.
We don't.
No, the only place I know that it has those brushes is wholesale only.
Okay, so next thing to do still is to go get a table, so I don't have to bend that line up on the floor.
You don't?
And then we'll have to run a piece of tubing through the straightener and straighten it out, or not. We might be able to just hand straighten that line of tubing. And we can make a replacement rear line.
Hand straighten it some, but shoot, I mean, leave some of the natural arc to it to mimic that football-shaped frame.
That just bows to do that. So, all right, I think that's
Plan is go get a table.
plan is to go get a table, and we'll at least replace that rear line, while I sleep a little bit more on what to do with the rest of them. Although my gut instinct tells me when you have to replace a chunk of line, you might do a good job of just replacing all of them. But
Yeah.
up here towards the front, even though there's a slip over sleeve up here towards the front, it might not have the same problem. And the ones up here aren't too bad. Although that one feeding the left front from sitting under the master cylinder, getting brake fluid on, it's pretty rusty on the outside. So there's a lot of me that says the engine's out. It's much easier to get the lines out, because they're going to be a royal pain in the you-know-what, with the distributor being so close to the firewall and everything in the back. It's just dang near impossible to thread those lines out. Right now we got unobstructed access, and it'll be just a ton easier to replace them. An error on the side of caution. If in doubt, replace them. Because it sure beats blowing one in the middle of
Eastern Montana.
North Dakota,
Hell's half
Minnesota.
acre.
It's 120 degrees outside.
Laying in
And
the
you're only
gravel
working
or-
with half your brakes. Although I think if I was on my way to Kenosha, I'd probably limp there and try to figure out how to do it in the hotel parking lot in Wisconsin. All right. Without further ado, we're going to go get a table and at least make one line up while I ponder the rest of my life. All right, we're back with a table. Temporary workbench. Since we have the typical shop problem that everybody seems to have. Every bench you own is covered in crap to the point where you can't do anything because of all the stuff. And that's no different here.
Which straightener do you want? The black one in the blue cabinet or the one in here?
The blue one in the black cabinet. How's that? As we go all out authentic around here, I should have me a piece of the smaller sleeve tube after I throw it on the floor. Look at that, would you? So we can actually replicate the stuff that was on here. I got enough to do the job. So, yes. So you buy this stuff by the roll. Hold on. Keep your knickers on now. Okay. Hold on. I gotta do a general unroll or you'll
Let me figure out which way I have to turn this. That way.
So we're going to run some line through a straightener. Okay. Run it through. Now turn it the other way and run her back. Now, hold on. Run her through again. Okay, that should do it for now. Well, you want enough of it. Do what you need to do. Okay, so.
Buttons.
Yeah. The next thing I need is my tubing stuff. Because I gotta turn right around and put an end on this. And that means we're gonna have to take a piece of line over to the other side and put it in the bench vise. That wasn't what I needed. I need my tubing set.
Oh, that thing.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bend this line up and we'll cut it so we don't have to carry this big Herkin slinky over to the other side.
Or just get another bench vise from up the house and just put it
Oh,
up
no.
here so we
No.
don't have to keep moving this.
Now, we need something with some weight to put that in because when you pull that handle, we'll just spin the table underneath it.
You know how to strap somebody to this.
Before I forget, better cut my piece of slip over, put on that because I'll dork up and double flare it. Don't do that for a second. Hopefully that knife is very sharp. Not particularly.
This part doesn't just pop right off, does it?
Should. There's usually a screw on the back end.
We'll see. This works now.
Looky at that, would you?
Oh,
You're welcome. have fun with that.
The things I do for future projects that I don't even own yet.
Yeah, it's good for you. Builds character. Okay. So next thing I gotta do, I gotta take the roll cutter's burr out of the end of this tube.
For those who are wondering, this is for a future project I'm trying to buy, but I don't currently own yet. It doesn't have a starter or brakes on it, so.
Just gonna test this if it goes in on golden. Golden. This end is already deburred, which is good. Need another tube nut. I'm simply gonna put that in and a piece of tape for now to hold it. Slip one over this end as well. Okay, so the next step in this process requires us to go over to the bench over on the other side and double flare the end of this line, and then the old line becomes scrap metal fodder for the back 40. There it is. Oh, yeah.
Should finish up my bench vise too.
Alright, so this is the Eastwood Company's version of the double flare kit. There's a couple different companies out there selling equivalents of this. Probably for cheaper.
Get this.
I got it. We'll work on your starter. This is pretty cool in that it's got everything built into it. So you simply drop the block in, put the tubing in, flop this over, set up enough to put the pin in, go to the flat operation, pushes the tubing back even. Make sure you got your nut on there because you'll have to cut your line off if you forget. This is 3/16 operation 1. You just pull the handle. 3/16 operation 2. Pull the handle. Just like that. Double flared end is done. I have that little hand operated unit over there, and I've used that for years, but finally broke down and bought this, and that other unit I only use underneath the car or in a weird in situ location because it isn't much fun to use it for anything else. I'll let you sort that out.
Yeah, can I please have a project that doesn't get hijacked by you?
Well, that about wraps up this edition of Rockets Rambler Garage. In this edition, we got the majority of the brake lines bent. They're pretty much ready to go. They've been blown out with air and the ends taped up to keep anything out of them. I have one more line to make. I need some a tube nut to do that, so I've got to order that. We're in pretty good shape brake line wise. So the next thing we're going to do before we do our next edition, we got to get busy and clean some stuff up. So that wraps it up. Please, if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. It really helps us out. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Okay, what do we want? A hello there or just a hello?
Your usual.
What's my usual?
Your usual. You should know.
No, I don't. What's my usual?
Hell, I don't remember.
Neither do I. God damn it. Alright. God, most days I hate you. You know that? Yeah.
This was your idea.
This was yours.
This was yours.
We could have driven the green car and just done an exhaust system and called it good. Here we are, disassembling another damn car, trying to hide all the pieces in the shop till the time comes to put it back together.
This thing in here was
This
your
car
idea.
was your idea.
Yes, this was mine. This was yours. Which, in retrospect, this compared to this doesn't look that bad. Or that significant.
Yeah, that's right. I come up with a really simple thing. You come up with 6 months worth of work.
Perfect!
All right.
I should almost throw this in as a bonus piece at the end.
No.
I probably will.
No. Don't you dare.
I will.
Actually, people